Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some breaking news tonight out of Santa Clara, California.
The Cedar Fair announcements are going to the dogs, Andy.
well, you know what? We got the announcement of a Raptor track at California's Great America, and Raptor Dog wanted to be a part of it tonight. So
That's
he's
right.
like, hey, let's get involved with the announcements. He's not having it, though. So he's like, this is bullshit. So
He'll probably start barking as soon as
So we finally found out what California's Great America is getting. It is indeed getting RailBlazer. A lot of people had speculated this, a single rail RMC track that seems to be a mirrored layout of the Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster that we saw earlier this month. So Danny, I don't know what to say. What do you got to say?
Well, there's a couple of things that I want to point out, and then there's a couple of things that I think we need to discuss. First off, I really like the name. Okay, I've been a fan of the name RailBlazer from day one. Thought at one point it might be the name for New Mean Streak, which we now know is Steel Vengeance. I thought it would make sense. We thought that there was a way to tie that into the Frontier Town theme. Not the case. Really do like the name, though. It's been used in the past for roller coasters, so we know that, it has a nice ring to it. I think it's easy to say. I think it's easy to spell. The first thing I'll say is the logo, kind of underwhelming. Simply a word mark with some stylized text. Really thought we could see something really cool with maybe some flames and maybe a train or something. In this case, it's ATV themed. Kind of. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the RailBlazer name and what the theme is here. So kind of underwhelmed by the logo.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but with the logo, the Z is actually the single rail track too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did notice that. So I think that's like a nice little Easter egg. But I was hoping for maybe a little bit something more. With the logo, at least. I think that's a nice Easter egg, and I think that's fine to have in there. But I would have liked to see something maybe a little bit more, daring out of the logo. So that's fine. But I do like the name, and I think the logo. I think the logo's fine. I don't dislike it. I just think a little conservative, I guess, is maybe the word I would look for. Now, obviously, we're going to have to compare this to Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth because it is essentially the same ride. A lot more theming, it seems, on this one. We do have a tunnel at the bottom of the first drop. We do seem to have some mountain rock theming, and we also have this sort of ATV mountain type theming, which we've seen in some of the teasers with like the mountain trails and whatnot. So I do like that. I think this is superior to Wonder Woman in that regard because Wonder Woman is literally just over a body of water, which is nice. There's nothing wrong with putting a coaster out over the water. But this looks like it's going to have some water to it, but it's also going to have some mountain theming, and towards the end of the ride, you'll probably go through some of the peaks and come close to some of the rock work. You are going to go through a tunnel, so I do think that's really nice. Judging from the renderings, if they do everything the way that it looks here, I think it's going to look very nice in this park. I think it's going to blend into that part of the park. I think it's going to have a nice theme here. And then, then there's some other things we can talk about here. And I think the first one is, I think the announcement overall is underwhelming for the simple fact that we got Wonder Woman announced 2 weeks ago. And here's my point. We saw Fiesta Texas start teasing maybe like a week to 10 days or so before they made their announcement. And they didn't really maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, if you follow Texas Thrill Seekers at all, Jeff Seaver was definitely teasing a little bit longer than that.
Okay, but not there nearly, were like two or three teasers, right? There wasn't a whole lot coming out of there.
There were a few. Nothing definitely official like we've seen with the other parks.
Right. So I think the real, I'm not even gonna. I'm not going to bash on this ride because, like I said with Wonder Woman, it looks like it's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a good ride. We've talked about the capacity thing. We're going to touch on that in a minute here. But let's leave the capacity argument aside for a minute. Capacity aside, I think this is going to be a fun ride. I think this is going to be a good ride. It's going to be a good looking ride, especially if they do the landscaping like this. But I think because Wonder Woman was announced 2 weeks ago, I think the fact that they did this great marketing campaign for, well over a month, I think. California's Great America did an outstanding job with this entire teaser with the SR1, and then the what we now know are like ATV tracks, and we had all this going on in this great teaser campaign with the trails, and then you saw the coasters being added up, much like we saw with Cedar Point a few years ago, and then to get a clone at the end of that seems like it's like, well, you guys did all this amazing work and you had this amazing campaign, and it's like something something we literally just saw 2 weeks ago. And I don't want to get on California's Great America here, because we're never going to know if Six Flags Fiesta Texas purposely moved their announcement up to be the first ones to announce this, because if it were California's Great America announcing this first and Fiesta Texas announcing this 2 weeks later, we'd be all over Fiesta Texas for having a cloned ride, and this would look like the unique first of its kind. At least that's how it would be processed. And it just kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth after this whole time we've had this amazing campaign, and then we have this sour taste in our mouth because it's something we've already seen. And like 2 days ago, everyone had said that it was confirmed that it was a mirror image, and we were like, oh no, don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? And you had some different ideas as to what you thought this could be, and maybe if you want to talk about that, you can. Like I said, I think it's going to be a fun ride. I don't know. Flight Deck is pretty good. I don't know if it's going to be the best steel coaster in that park. I don't think it's going to be better than Gold Striker, so I don't think it's going to be the best roller coaster in that park. It's going to be a fun ride. We can talk about the capacity if you want to. We've talked about that a little bit. But with how great the teaser campaign was, it leaves us – it's almost bittersweet, because it's not something that's going to be unique just to California's Great America.
I don't even know what to say at this point. Besides the fact that for really the first time that I can remember, we have Cedar Fair and Six Flags putting in the same exact ride. And I guess you could trace it back to like boomerangs and even like impulse coasters, but even with the impulse coasters, it just felt that Cedar Fair, like with Wicked Twister, tried to do something bigger, tried to do something better. Mm-hmm. The boomerangs are all the same. It's a stock thing. And I guess I have to start looking at this Raptor track as just a stock roller coaster, that there is no such thing as a custom Raptor track. And maybe
there will be. I don't know.
Well, Danny, if there will be, then I question why that isn't today.
I agree. I agree. And if someone says the T-Rexes are going to be the customs and this is going to be the stock one, I don't understand. Again, like we said with Wonder Woman, I don't understand why these bigger parks, comparatively speaking, are putting in these when they could be putting in the T-Rexes. I don't know if they want to spend less money. We've talked about that and how parks have seemingly started to move towards going with on the cheap roller coasters, because Six Flags, we've seen these free flies the last couple of years, and the Iron Horses have started to kind of peter off in terms of Six Flags, and we don't know the cost for Twisted Timbers or Steel Vengeance, but I gotta imagine that the cost for these Raptor tracks isn't really through the roof. It's got to be a minimal investment for what they're going to get out of this. So are we going down that path where we're going for economy and value over, biggest, bestest, fastest, all the ests terms you want to use, and doing something really, truly unique? And the days of the Mavericks and the Fury 325s and, the Millennium Forces, are those days going to be behind us, where we don't see a lot of super unique stuff going on? Because we can even look at what was announced earlier today with Steel Vengeance. Very, very similar to some of the things that New Texas Giant and some of the other larger RMCs have done. You look at Twisted Timbers, and we see a lot of Storm Chaser and Wicked Cyclone in that one. And even though, they're both rides that are unique and are going to be all their own, but they do a lot of the same stuff that we've seen before. And this is taking it one step further, where not only is it something I guess you could say we haven't seen it before because none of the rides are open yet, but we're getting a completely new type of coaster, and it's not even like we're waiting a year till we get another one. We're getting 2 of the exact same type of new type of coaster in the same year, and it's not like Six Flags Fiesta Texas and Six Flags Over Georgia are getting them. We're literally seeing competing chains do the same thing, and that's another thing I want to discuss here is the dynamic between RMC, Cedar Fair, and Six Flags, and we're never going to know how this has all gone down and who was designing it first and who came in second, if they were about the same time and if there was a mutual agreement. I don't know the dynamic there, but it's a fascinating dynamic to think about.
Well, it's fascinating from the perspective of, did RMC divulge, who was getting it? Did they simply sit down at the table and say, hey, we have this brand new coaster. We're only building it in this version. Other parks have already bought it. And maybe they didn't disclose who bought it, but said, hey, other parks have bought it. This conversation could be either to Cedar Fair or Six Flags. It had to be to one of them. And say, hey, if you want it too, you can have it too, but it's not in the same region as you are. So maybe that's the answer. Our friend Robert Engel, who we've posted some pictures about this from, posted a picture of today of we met Rob Decker and Fred Grubb on the test track at the RMC, factory. So we've seen that. So we know there's a discussion here. Business doesn't happen if a company like Six Flags can get the jump on the other company. That's not the way to do business. That's why I think there's a 0% chance of that happening. And that's why Matt we met said exactly what he said. He didn't say it was going to be a world's first. He said it was something we've never seen before.
Which is, and again, I brought that up 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was, when we talked about this and we started catching wind that, we started catching wind that there might be a Wonder Woman clone going to California's Great America. And I remember distinctly saying to you, and I said it again on the air, I said, well, he didn't say it was going to be a first. He said it was going to be a new type of roller coaster, which technically speaking for 2018 is a true statement. It's a new type of coaster for 2018. Now, the interesting thing is going to be Fiesta Texas has been very adamant about saying it's the first of its kind.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing now is going to, because these two parks tend to open up around the same time of year, sometime in March. It's going to be interesting to see who actually opens first and how they handle that, and then how the other park will handle not being the first to open, and to see if there will actually be some sort of war over that.
If you read the press release, Cedar Fair has already said that it's the world's first of its kind on the West Coast. So they've already kind of fell into that, the wonderful regional firsts. So another interesting part about this is the capacity that we kind of mentioned early on. The interesting part with this one is, unlike Wonder Woman, we actually got a POV video from RailBlazer. So we were actually able to kind of track how the ride goes. Now, keep in mind, we've been talking a lot about RMC videos, and maybe they're sped up. We don't know for sure. There's already reports coming out that On Planet Coaster, Steel Vengeance is running a little bit slower than what the POV shows at the end there.
I'm updating my Planet Coaster right now. I haven't opened it in a while, so hopefully by the end of the night I'll be able to check out Steel Vengeance myself.
So we can neither confirm nor deny that just yet, because we haven't done it ourselves. We do hear reports of that happening. But just by this POV, what it looks like is that there are definitely 3 trains on RailBlazer, that there's rumors that they'd only be running 2, definitely 3. There's a yellow train, a red train, and a black train. So there's definitely 3 trains. So as the first one goes up the lift hill itself is 20 seconds long. Also noted within the press release is that the lift hill will be silent. It's a silent anti-rollback system. So you're not going to hear this thing at all go up the lift hill, which is kind of weird. And also for all those people that get weirded out by the click sound, this is not going to happen there at all. Then the entire ride is 55 seconds. So basically from the release of the lift hill to the end to the final brake run, you're probably looking at about 30, 33 seconds, somewhere around there, in that range. There is a train, on the brake run already that is waiting to go into the station. And if you look at that animation closely, that as that train hits the brake run, there is another train going up the hill. There's another train coming in. So all of this is happening simultaneously, that the second it hits the brake run, there's a train dispatching, there's another train coming in. So Danny, what does that mean for theoretical versus realistic, capacity here?
Well, in theory, it looks like you're going to be able to dispatch a train every 50 seconds or so. That would be kind of the best case scenario. Now, with those numbers, you'd be able to do roughly 70 to 72 dispatches per hour, which if you get to 72, which would be every 50 seconds on the button, you would get to 576 riders per hour, which is not a great number. It's better than what we talked about with Wonder Woman, where if you go to a minute dispatches, which is maybe a little bit closer to realistic, because in reality, you're not going to hit that 50-second magic number every time. You're going to have some issues. You'll probably have some people walk of shaming the ride, I'm sure. You'll probably have some other issues. A slow guest, whether it's, someone who needs some extra time, whether it's a handicap access, something is going to keep you from hitting that every time. So let's say best case scenario, you're looking at 60-second dispatches. You're looking at, 60 dispatches an hour, 8 riders per train, that's 480. So that number starts to go down very quickly. And if you have a couple of really long ones, or if you have operators that, aren't up to snuff, and you're getting, 30 dispatches an hour, which is 2-minute dispatches, which for 8 people, it's probably, you should be able to do much better than that.
Yeah.
You should be able to do better than that with only 8 seats to check. But it's really going to rely on the guests being quick to get in and out of their seats as well. So I would be surprised if we didn't see lockers for an attraction like this, even at the Cedar Fair Park here, California's Great America. But if you do the 2-minute dispatches, you're looking at 240 riders per hour. 240 riders per hour, which is a very, very bad number. Even most of your flat rides can usually come in a little bit better than that. So this, like we talked with Wonder Woman, there is potential to have a mediocre or average at best capacity here, but you're not going to have good capacity. I wouldn't even call it decent capacity. I think you're going to have mediocre capacity even when this ride is running as best it can. And if it's not running as best it can, you're going to have poor capacity, and possibly even bad capacity if you don't have operators that are really moving. So you're going to need to have your best operators on this, and they're going to have to understand that, hey, if we don't want ridiculously long lines here, we're going to need to keep this moving just to keep our heads above water. And we're talking about that now. We talked about it with Wonder Woman, a couple weeks ago. The same applies here, because I think crowd-wise and size-wise, we're looking at about the same amount of parks. I think the difference is, I think California's Great America, this is going to be a big headlining attraction. This could very possibly be the attraction at that park for a while. Whereas at Fiesta Texas, you've got Iron Rattler, you've got Superman Cryptic Coaster, you've got a couple of other big people eater capacity coasters. This park doesn't quite have the people eater capacity coasters as much as a park like Six Flags Fiesta Texas does. Yeah, they have Flight Deck and Patriot, older B&Ms. Gold Striker is pretty good with capacity, but you certainly don't have maybe the coaster capacity at California's Great America that you might at a Fiesta Texas that has a couple B&Ms and an RMC, a Premier that does okay. So it's going to be interesting to see what the lines end up being like for this.
Well, because I just got a chance to for the first time ride Joker with the general population and get there at open, and the line,
Which Joker?
The one at Great America, the one at Six Flags Great America. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the line. The line, I would say this, that the ride ops were moving about as fast as they could. They were dispatching everyone about 30 seconds to a minute long. Joker does have the benefit that you get to load 2 trains at a time. and have one stage. So it does have that added benefit. But the line was still very sluggish. Still took me 20 minutes at open to get in there with only maybe, a minimal line in front of me, 3 switchbacks. And a lot of people said, well, if they can do it on Joker, they can do it here. But just like you said, this is not Joker. This is going to be a headliner. This is going to be a major roller coaster for both parks, not just California's Great America. And this coaster,
one that people are going to want to re-ride. Joker is kind of like, oh, okay, once and done. But this one is going to be like, gee, that was a pretty good ride. Let's go on it again. Oh, wait, there's a 2-hour line.
Yeah, and this one, like you said, has a very small margin of error. That once you start stacking trains and start falling behind, it's going to have a very negative impact on the overall capacity, more so than maybe any other coaster we've ever experienced. Full circuit.
You can't make that up here. It's not like if you have a 1.5-minute dispatch here or a 2-minute here, you can't go back and do a 30-second one. To try and make up that time. It's not going to work with the way this ride runs. So, I mean, once you lose some time, that time is lost for that hour, and that's time you're not getting back, which I think is maybe what scares some people here, because it doesn't look like there's a staging area like Fury and Leviathan have at the base of the lift hill, where you can kind of make up some time and just kind of park one out front. There is time. There's very easily going to be time lost here that isn't time that you can make back up. I think that's the biggest concern here.
So I think overall, when looking at RailBlazer, it's nice to have the extra theming with the rocks, the tunnel. It even kind of goes over the midway a little bit, which I'm a little bit surprised by. That one of the turns towards the right underneath the lift hill. Actually goes over the midway, which we haven't seen a lot in a lot of parks. I thought that was interesting. But overall, I kind of say I'm a little bit underwhelmed by RailBlazer, the entire package here. Like you said, I'm sure it's going to be a fine ride. It's going to be a fun ride. I don't really expect it to be a world beater. I just would have hoped that Cedar Fair would have installed maybe something a little more unique. That I think the single rail concept is an intriguing one. I think the T-Rex track probably still would have been the better way to go with this, to have a custom layout versus something that other people are going to have. I'm kind of confused, because I feel like California's Great America is on that cusp of being the next Carowinds that we saw when Fury was installed in Carowinds, that the attendance just skyrocketed. And everyone's been happy with the performance of Carowinds over the last few years. I can't imagine that there's any single person, on the board or stockholder that's upset with that performance down there. And I kind of felt that California's Great America was the next one to get that kind of treatment. And this coaster doesn't really imply that to me. That yes, it's unique. Yes, it's unique for the area. Yes, it's going to be fun. But you would think they would want another people eater. And I'm not saying everyone needs a Giga to get good, but something like Gold Striker is a fine ride that you've been impressed by. That other people have been impressed by. But a big steel coaster, something more unique, I think might have whet the appetite, because a lot of people from the East Coast are just going to opt to go to Texas, I think, next year and skip California. It's cheaper to go to Texas in many places.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing here. I think if you're a coaster enthusiast who is looking to travel, to ride one of these next year, you're probably not going to go to both Great America and Fiesta Texas considering the same ride. If we got a completely new layout, or if you got a T-Rex that was completely custom, maybe you're tempted to go to both. At the end of the day, I think this is a good announcement for California's Great America. I think it's going to be a good addition. I think the capacity is something to keep an eye on, just like we said with Six Flags Fiesta Texas. We certainly could have done better, I think, in that realm. But time will tell how much of an issue it ends up being in the long run. I think the theming and the scenery, if it's done the way it looks in the rendering, which sometimes it's not, sometimes it is, has potential to be really nice looking and to really make this a beautiful part of the park and make it a really nice looking attraction. I think this is I hope that this is a start to what California's Great America's future holds. Hopefully there's more to come, really more coming. I don't know. But I think if this is the beginning, I think it's a good start. I'd like to see the momentum continue because I think I very much enjoyed the park, and leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but overall, I would say if the Fiesta Texas announcement wasn't made 2 weeks ago, I think this is something we're much, much, much more excited about and much more intrigued by. But for me right now, I think it kind of meets expectations, especially since we kind of felt that this is what was happening. Even a month ago, you and I kind of felt this is what was happening. I think the whole, not to make a King's Dominion reference, but I think the King's Dominion, teaser and the Fiesta Texas announcement 2 weeks ago, I think kind of put a sour apple in the bunch here and just kind of left a little bit of a sour apple taste in your mouth after such a great teaser and what honestly is going to be a really nice ride.
Yeah. So as always, thanks for joining us here. We'll have plenty more coverage over everything that's been announced, coming up very soon here on Coaster.net. So please stay tuned for all the great things that we have coming your way. As always, I'm Andy Robarczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
And Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
See you guys.